Let us continue with our giant scene-by-scene review of HBO's Rome. 2 years after I published the last part, I'd say enough time has passed, too much even, so I won't be delaying it with my shitty explanations as to why I'm such an inconsistent asshole. So we're at season 1, episode 4, and the episode is called Stealing from Saturn. And the last scene that we reviewed the previous time was 11 minutes into the episode, where Caesar has occupied Rome, he has declared martial law, and basically every single person in the city has shit themselves and hidden in their houses in order to survive. We're at Venus's house, where something somewhat random is happening. I guess they're starting a new business in the middle of the city having been occupied by a tyrant. I guess you could say that's Varenus and Caesar knows him and they trust each other, and that's why Varenus is ballsy enough to even think about starting a business during times of occupation. The interesting thing about this scene is that they've gathered up Varenus and his family, and they're all performing a ritual in honor of the god Janus. And this is so that the god blesses the new business, which I love. It's once again one of those amazing historical shenanigans that the show does so often. This way of connecting concepts of ancient times with concepts of modern times, producing a funny contrast. Like in this case, Verena says, turning to the god Janus, Janus, I hope you will smile upon this new business venture that I'm starting today. This sounds so ridiculous to me. It's like if I heard a programmer or something praying to Allah or Jesus in order for his code to work. And as insane as it sounds to me, in my case, this isn't even ancient sounding. Uh, sounding. I've mentioned many times before. I grew up in a very rural part of my country, so it's basically as if I grew up in antiquity, with the one difference that we had a landline phone, a car, and a TV. Other than that, everything was the same. My parents worked in Greece for a number of years, and when they came back and wanted to open up a small store, they all went to church to light candles so that God would help them grow their business. It sounds weird to me now, even after all these years, but in the big scheme of things, this has not disappeared. I guess one day, like maybe 1,000 years from now, people might be traveling in rockets to Mars, and they're still gonna be praying to Jesus for their freaking rocket not to crash or something. And by the way, before I move on, another interesting thing in this scene, the woman talking to Verena says that she remembers when Sula took over the city and how there was so much blood spilled then that you could paint walls with it. I love this. It's one of these things that the show makes you. It makes you feel like experiencing something without you seeing it, and just by implication. We don't see flashbacks of Sola's occupation or anything, but we're told about it, which makes the viewer turn their brain on and try to imagine it. I just love this kind of thing in films and literature, and I love it much more than showing actual flashbacks and stuff like that. In a weird way, it often happens that hearsay is more exciting to consume than just a representation of what the reality was. Anyway, moving on. Anthony calls Marinos while he's taking a bath, I guess. And of course, since this is HBO, we need to see genitalia. I've never understood this kind of stupidity on their part. I guess there's nothing wrong with it. It's just a dick, but then they're showing it in kind of a sneaky way, like from a far off point of view, and then in the shots where the actor is at a close up, they never show the dick from that close. So there's this weird contradiction in them wanting to be brave and showing it, but then not showing it too much. I mean, why? Just pick one. I'll be fine with either. Either show genitalia like you really don't care about it, as I generally think it should be. People's bodies are just too sexualized for no reason. Or, or do not show genitalia at all. I'm fine with this as well. I guess there's people who enjoy sexual elements in their art, but I'm not one of those people. I do not associate true art, quotes, true art, with sex at all. I think art is something, at least to me, I guess it's like a religion for me. I think of art as something ethereal and really sacred, as like a language that we all share and can communicate with, but it's not like a language with words and grammar. It's much more beautiful and complex. Art is a language made up of, music, literature, paintings, symbols, and such stuff that can make us feel emotion and teach us things that otherwise cannot be expressed in plain language. That's what I think real art is. And sex, in the big scheme of things, sex is really fucking stupid. Yeah, it feels good and whatever, and you gotta do it like you do eating and sleeping. But when I hear those people that are like, oh, sex is connecting our bodies and our souls, sex is sublime and blah blah, like, no, it's not. Sex is stupid and disgusting, at least when you're not horny. And it's just one of those things that people do while they're alive, like going to the bathroom, for example. It's a fucking biological need and an animal reflex. And I'm sorry, but if you think copulation is more complex than that, you're an idiot. Sex is literally just a bodily secretion for the purpose of procreation. And yeah, you might feel emotions uh, associated with it during it, like love and passion and whatever, but those are not some heavenly feelings of an enlightened soul. Love is literally a chemical reaction in your brain that nature uses to manipulate you into fucking and procreating. That's it. And I don't want any of that in my art. Now, that is not to say I want my art totally sexless and sterile. No, I just mean I don't need to literally see any dicks or vaginas or whatever. You can just imply it. I'm okay with that. And anyway, enough of my weird uh, genitalia rant. What can I say? I just fucking, I don't know, just HBO, man. Cut it out with the dicks. If I want to look at a dick or whatever, I'll just go have sex or watch porn or something. Um, Moving on. So Anthony has called Varenus and tells him that he's a moron for always following the law and whatever. He basically says, stop being so moral. Life isn't like stone. It's more like water, always changing, and you have to change with it. And of course, Marina says, then I suppose I'll drown, like the moral idiot that he is. I mean, his character just reminds me of my grandma. She got like married off to an abusive son of a bitch, spent all her life with him and taking the abuse meanwhile, and then still never even thought about divorce and being with someone else because that would make her a slut. And she used to tell me and my sister that the same shit. You find your first one and you gotta stay with them forever, no matter what kind of person they are, just because otherwise you'd be a slut. Uh, the best part about all of that is that I became a slut anyway. So well done, Grandma. It totally worked. And I guess it's the same character development for Varenus ultimately. He continues being a moralistic piece of shit. and his entire family suffers because of it. As horrible as my analogy was, I'm still gonna say I still love this character and what he represents because even if it's horrible and stupid, it just it feels human. It shows humanity. There were people like that in ancient Rome. There are people like that today, and I guess there will always be people like that until the last day of our existence as a species. And the amazing thing is that this phenomenon only exists in us. Like, can you imagine seeing a moralistic amoeba or a religious jellyfish or maybe a beaver that's racist and thinks his kind is superior to some other group of beavers across the continent? I mean, as amazing and fascinating as humankind is, at the same time, we are also profoundly stupid. And so, in the next scene, Niobe goes to a fortune teller that, of course, tells the future by looking at dead animals and organs. Oh god, this is painful as well. My parents did the same thing. This show makes me feel like I grew up in the fucking jungle around 60,000 BCE. At least it's not like they went to a fortune teller that killed animals or whatever, but it's still pretty fucking stupid. They went to one like that melts down a bullet and tells fortune by the molten metal. And they also went to perform rituals at random graves at night with my, at the time, adolescent cousins. I think they were like 12 and 10 years old at the time or something like that. Imagine taking the little kids to a graveyard at night to do magic. And let me just mention that all of the things that they predicted about me, 98% of those things turned out to be horribly incorrect and completely the opposite of what actually came to be. So yeah, fortune tellers for the win. The one in the show at least guessed that Varenus would become rich, which is a prediction I'd be able to pin down in a state of intoxication. Anyway, as you can see, I fucking hate fortune tellers and gullible idiots who gobble this shit up. In the next few scenes, everyone's getting ready for their parties. Atia, Servilia, Caesar, and the rich people, and also the plebs, Varenus and his family getting ready to celebrate their new business venture. And he looks so fucking stupid with these flowers on his head. I just love it. uh, oh god, and then Erastes Fullman comes, his future nemesis, hugging him and all. Knowing what's gonna happen, it's just painful to watch in retrospect. And by the way, his introduction bio, and as mentioned by Niobe, includes fire insurance, which again sounds hilarious to me. Fire insurance in ancient Rome, it's like I'm hearing about the health insurance of Socrates. And- oh, by the way, something interesting. As far as I know, so Augustus created the first ever state fire brigade when he became emperor, which is like, I think, 20 years later. And an awesome fact from my own corner of the earth again, of the preserved list of name of people in this fire brigade that Augustus set up, one of these men actually uh, comes from the same place where I was born. And the first time I heard about this, I felt so awesome. Like, you know how patriotic morons feel proud of their country and shit. This was one of these few instances where I ever felt this kind of thing, like endearment toward the history of my motherland. And it wasn't because of anything else, but because some guy 2000 years ago was a fireman in Rome during the time of Augustus. I know I sound like a complete nerd, but I mean, I am a nerd, so whatever. I'll just relish in it. Anyway, I need to cut it out here because my jaw hurts from talking. We'll be continuing in part three of this episode, which I promise will not be in 2 years' time.